Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and as we approach the halfway mark of Season of Defiance, I wanted to rank all the subclasses as they currently stand, including Strand, which is the brand new one with Lightfall, and all the changes we got with how the subclasses interact with champions and the like. So I'm basing this around not only how good a subclass is in PvE and PvP, but also if they are exceptional in one spot. Like, for example, the Solar Warlock is absolutely dominant in PvE. That's going to bump it up a little bit in my mind. So, jumping right into it, we're going to start with Arc, which I believe is the weakest of all the subclasses. And Arc Hunter is probably okay in certain regards with the new super that it got recently. It actually does a little bit better, and I think a lot of people build around those melee builds that can be a lot of fun. But overall, I'm going to drop it down to a C, and the reason being it's not very versatile. You don't have a lot of options with this, and also one of my biggest problems with this is it's very poor in PvP. You almost never see it, which is a real shame, and so that's why it's going to drop down a little bit. Now, this one is going to hurt me because I wish it was a lot better, but to be honest, the Arc Titan is also going to be in C. Thunder Crash can be built around. I actually had a lot of fun last season with some of the mods, but this season, as it stands, just not very good. It doesn't stand up to the other ones, and there's just so many better builds that you can make with other subclasses. So even in PvP, it just falls behind because of whether it's the artifact perks, the new weapons. There's just not a lot of options there that are going to benefit this one as much as you'd see from other subclasses. And then finally, I believe this might be the worst subclass in the game right now. That is the Arc Warlock. And the reason being, there's nowhere that it shines. It doesn't do great in PvP, doesn't do great in PvE. In PvE, you can make some fun builds that can do okay. If you're a cracked player, you can still do well. And that's going to happen with any of the subclasses, so I'm not taking that into account. I'm saying it for your average player and for your standard builds, is this going to shine anywhere? And I just don't see it. It can be a fun. The Go Fast update with the Arc 3.0 was fun, but in my opinion, it is not the best in the game right now. And so that's why those are all ranking fairly low. And I wish they were better because I do like Arc, and it's definitely one of my favorites to try to play when it's good, but that's just not it right now. As far as Arc Warlock goes, I'm going to put this in B. Oh, sorry, Void Warlock. I actually think Void is underrated at times, and the subclasses are very, very good. Devour builds with Warlock still slaps. I think they've been overshadowed a little bit and outpaced by some of the other changes, and I'll get to that in a second. But I think it can be very good. Now, this is where a lot of people will probably disagree with me, but I'm going to put the Void Titan at A tier. I love it. I will use this everywhere and anywhere. The overshields that it gives is tremendous. My survivability is far better on Void personally than it is on Solar. And for that reason, it's the one that I trust the most. And I think while people like the flashier builds, I think the volatile round builds with Void, uh, not only this season, but next season, once the artifact perk goes away, this is still very viable and I love it. And that's the reason why I'm going to put it in A tier. Same thing with the Void Hunter. And the reason being, this thing, you can make a lot of different builds around it. You can do Gerfalcon's build, you can do PvP builds. The versatility of these right here are why they're so high for me. Whereas the Void Warlock is a little bit more of a one trick. The other two, I think, are very, very versatile and very good. Now we're getting into some interesting things because the Solar Titan, I think, is a B tier. And I know some people have some really cracked survivability builds. You can make insane Solar Hammer builds, but I think they suffer a little bit this season compared to what we've seen in the past. I did put out a video on a Solar Titan build that I've been loving with Peregrine Greaves in the PvP aspect of the game right now. But overall, I don't think it's the best. I think it can be a lot of fun, but honestly, I don't think it's better than the Void Titan at all, and so that's why I'm going to rank it a little bit lower. And again, I do enjoy it. I think it's got a lot of potential, but it's not as good as Void Titan, and that's just my personal opinion. Now we're getting to the interesting one because this is, in my opinion, the best subclass in the game, not only for PvP or PVE, but also PVE as well. There's builds you can make for this that are absolutely insane. Even when the dominant builds for this currently in PVE go are put away, there's gonna be others to rise in its place. It's just so good. You can make so many grenade builds, and you can. I made a rain of fire build for PvP that was just insane, and it felt like it was kind of busted, to be honest. The movement, the Dawnblade, and the Well of Radiant. There's just so many things about the Solar Warlock that make it busted, in my opinion, and so that's why I'm gonna rank it as S tier, and quite possibly the best subclass in the game. Now we're gonna get into Gunslinger. If we were talking momentum control, this would be S tier because it's so stupid in momentum control. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think it is solid. It's hurt right now. Like you can make a Nighthawk, Celestial Nighthawk shot buffed up, but there's a lot of steps to set that up, and I don't think a lot of people are running it that way. So that's why I'm gonna put it actually in the C tier. And so again, it's one of those things that I think people are gonna disagree. At its peak with either Celestial Nighthawk or Blade Barrage, this thing was tremendous. And there's some cool things you can do in PvP. I think in PvE it can be solid, but you just don't see it ran a whole lot, especially in the end game. And there's no place where this is like the absolute best, and that's what bumps it down a little bit for me. And again, it's one of those things where I know not everyone's going to agree, but it's just my personal opinion. Now, this one is Shadebinder Warlock is underrated in my opinion. I think it's very good. And I think overall, this is one of those that if it wasn't for the Solar Warlock, this would be S tier because it's the crowd control that it has is tremendous. The just some of the builds you can make are very good. I know a lot of it relies on osmiomancy, but you can make other builds that's solid as well. And I think it's just one of the better subclasses in the game that just goes underutilized right now because of the artifact perks, but also because well is so good, especially in the end game. Otherwise, I would say it'd be a lot higher. Now, this is one again that I consider dropping it down into B tier just because of Strand is so good, and I would kind of replace that. But I think they're kind of on the same level. Now we get to the Titan. This one's tough because I think it's still a very good subclass, but I'm actually putting this one in C as well for two reasons. One, I think you can make builds with this that are tremendous. I've done so. I put them on the channel. A lot of people like that, and those builds are a lot of fun. However, for the common player, this is not. This is the least used subclass in the game. For PvP specifically, it is the worst class in the game. That's the only reason I'm putting it down there. And PvP specifically, it's really bad. PvE, again, you can make some cracked builds with it, but I think it is hyper specific with those builds. It's not like one of like I feel like I can slap on my Void Titan and just go to town no matter the content and have a good one. My build doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to have all this set up to make it work well, and that's why I have that a bit higher than this. So that's just again that's a personal opinion. Now we're getting into this one. This one again is the one I think that is a little bit underrated and has been overshadowed because of the Strand Hunter, which I think is very good. But I'm gonna put that one in C as well. Again, C is average. It's not bad, but I think there's a reason that is there's a bunch down here, and these all either lack some place to be dominant or just don't have anything special all over the place, and they don't have the versatility of some of the other subclasses. So now we get to the Titan. I think this one is one of my favorites. I'm gonna put that here. I think it's actually tremendous, and the suspend is so good. It kind of rivals the stasis warlock there in how it's able to use crowd control, especially if you build in a bunch of different ways. You can do so many cool things. It's a lot of fun. Now we're gonna go with the Strand Hunter. This is gonna be interesting to a lot of people. I think this is actually even after they kind of fixed the bug, I think this is S tier. The reason being, it's extremely good in PvP. It's very good in PvE as well, and I just from what I've seen and the usage and all that kind of stuff, this is one that will like cool potential, I will say, of this one is off the charts. Whether it's with a grapple and the clips and the slam that you can do when someone is pushing you to suspend them, there's just a lot of ways that this thing is very, very good. I kind of would probably put it in A, to be honest, but I just think having judged all the other classes of what they can do at the high end, this one is actually tremendous. And I'm surprised we're not seeing it more. Again, in PvE, it's not going to be the most dominant thing. It's nowhere near, obviously, something like this in PvE. But I think for PvP, it's probably the best subclass in the game, even though I know people are going to disagree. And then we go here to A tier. And I really like the Strand Warlock. Again, it falls into one of those situations that Strand and Stasis Warlock would rival the S tier if it wasn't for the Solar and Solar being so good and having so many different options. Well of Radiance just makes it ridiculous in PvE. And then I think in PvP it's just very, very good, especially this season. We got double firebolts with the Warlock having the better firebolt grenade, and the fact that you can use Rain of Fire with Vex. You can use all these different combinations that are just broken, and that's why that one is S tier for me. Actually, I'm gonna do this, to be honest. All of these are A tier. I was having this at S, but I've changed my mind because this one is just so dominant that I think it deserves almost a tier of its own. I should make another tier to slide in there instead. But yeah, this is my ranking. Obviously, it's funny that we have warlocks at the top and the bottom, so I think that's kind of synonymous with where warlocks are at. Either they feel amazing or they don't feel all that great at times. And so it's just very interesting to me. As a Titan main, it pains me that there's no S tier Titan, and I feel like Titan is falling behind a little bit at times. But that's just because I want my Titan to be the strongest possible thing in the game. So I think overall we see it's pretty well balanced. We've got a couple hunters in here. We've got a couple warlocks. We got Titans, all that kind of good stuff. And yeah, overall, I think that's where I stand on my classes. Let me make sure I scroll up a little bit so you get everything in there. Um, but yeah, that's gonna be my thoughts on the matter. I'd love to hear from you guys, whether you guys agree, disagree. I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of people telling me how wrong I am on this tier list, but it's all in good fun, and I hope you take it that way. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. My name is JoPa. I hope you have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.